This is a series of no frills. This is all you need to know about type PowerPoints. So very few pictures, lots of info, but in very brief. So this is the first chapter of Imperial Image. This is Octavian coming to Rome, and we take it from the death of Julius Caesar in 44 BC to the Battle of Philippi against Julius Caesar's killers in 42 BC. Okay, and this covers pages 115 to 122. So we've talked about the fact that there were problems with Julius Caesar because he'd angered a number of people, most notably the senators. He had formed a triumvirate, that is 3 rulers of Rome, with Pompey and Crassus, which many people saw as bypassing the traditional routes to power and as unconstitutional because they'd just done it without any recourse to asking the Senate whether that was okay. The first triumvirate that Caesar formed turned in on itself, with Crassus dying on campaign in Parthia, and then private squabbling led to a civil war between Pompey and Julius Caesar. Caesar then marched his armies on Rome and then upset even more people and then defeated his main political rival at the Battle of Pharsalia in 49 BC. He was eventually named dictator of Rome for life in 44 BC and then was, of course, assassinated by a group of senators, including the senators Brutus and Cassius and a guy called C. Decimus Brutus. There were benefits to Julius Caesar if the Senate didn't like him and they thought that he'd gained too much power and therefore he ended up being killed. He was, however, popular with the army and popular with ordinary people of Rome. So Octavian is his grandnephew, but in Julius Caesar's will in 44, he actually found himself as Julius Caesar's adopted son. And as such, Octavian may well have inherited a number of Caesar's enemies, those who feared that Caesar was just becoming too powerful. He had to be seen to avenge the death of his adopted father. He was from a politically insignificant family, a family called the Octavii, see Suetonius 7 and 8, and he called himself Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, thus dissociating himself from his old Octavi family and associating himself with Julius Caesar. He wanted to see himself as political heir to Julius Caesar, that is Julius Caesar's property, his name, and certainly Caesar's political power. And Octavian gave his money to the plebeians of Rome to fulfill Caesar's will. Caesar had promised to give them good parties and parks, and Octavian did exactly that. And he made himself popular with the ordinary people by doing that. And of course, the name Caesar also was popular with the ordinary people of Rome as well. And in fact, Octavian had fought alongside Julius Caesar at the Battle of Munda in 45 BC, the year before Caesar's death. So he was kind of associated with Caesar in the minds of the army anyway. After Caesar's death, he then held games in honor of Venus, Caesar's ancestor, and at the games, Octavian claimed that a comet had appeared in the sky, and that was the spirit of his father Julius Caesar going to the gods. In 43 BC, then, Octavian formed a triumvirate with Lepidus and Mark Antony. It was modelled after Julius Caesar's triumvirate with Pompey, but this time it was legal. It was ratified by the Senate, unlike the first triumvirate. And the task was to destroy Julius Caesar's assassins. That's what Mark Antony, Lepidus, and Octavian vowed to do. And in a series of what's called the proscriptions, they kill a number of political enemies of their own, and they fill their own pockets with the dead senator's money. And at least 100 die, and it may be up to 300 out of 900 that are actually killed. That's senators, incidentally. So out of 900 senators, it may well be that those proscriptions destroyed a third of the Senate. And at this point, so we'll look at this in a little bit more detail, Octavian starts to style himself as son of a god. After the funeral of Julius Caesar, Julius Caesar had been declared a god. And the title Divi Philus literally means son of a god, and you find that Octavian starts to put that onto coins alongside the title Divus Iulus, which is the divine Julius. But it was normal for Romans to claim that they're descended from gods or heroes, like Aeneas, or in Mark Antony's case, as we'll find out next lesson, Hercules. Both Mark Antony and Octavian present themselves as heirs to Caesar. Mark Antony was Caesar's fellow consul and second in command of the armies, and in 42, Mark Antony, Lepidus, and Octavian defeated the killers of Caesar at the Battle of Philippi. So the first set of images that you need to be aware of and need to be able to put into historical context is this one. The first one is the image of 43 BC, where the comet appears at the games in honour of Julius Caesar, and after 43 that meant that Octavian could style himself as son of a god. And in fact other people had done that, for most notably Alexander the Great in the East. In the 4th century BC had styled himself as son of a god, so it was not unheard of. This is the most important one because this one could well turn up on your exam paper. So you need basically to be able to give me what the historical background is. We've just talked about that. This is 43 BC. This is the year after Caesar has been killed. And on the next slide, it will talk about what you need to know about this particular coin. You can see a very young Octavian here on the left hand side. There's the young Octavian, and then you've got the older Julius Caesar there. You'll notice that they've both got the title Gaius Caesar. That is because the younger Octavian hasn't done much militarily yet, so he wants to associate himself with the more famous Gaius Caesar, and he does so by taking his name, of course, because he was his adopted son. You've also got the words cos, standing for consul, which is a legitimate constitutional office, which is fine. You know, nobody's going to, no political person's going to complain about Octavian being consul. That was okay. Down here you have a reminder, however, that Julius Caesar was dict perp, you know, dictator in perpetuity, dictator for life. And over here you've got the words pont aug on Octavian's side, a reminder that he is an augur. In other words, he sacrifices on behalf of the state. That's his religious office. And here you've got Julius Caesar Pont Max, Pontifex Maximus, high priest. So what you've got here is you've got the name Gaius Caesar associated with Gaius Caesar on the other side, the political office consul, perfectly constitutional for Octavian to hold that. A reminder of the political office on this side, which is Julius Caesar dict perp, dictator for life. On this side you have got Octavian's pont aug, augur, the one that sacrifices on behalf of the state, and on this side you've got Pont Max, the religious office of Julius Caesar, the high priest. Notice that Octavian is not wearing anything on his head. That is because at this point he hasn't done much, but Julius Caesar there, I just put the letters JC, Julius Caesar has got a laurel wreath on his head. The idea that he has gained great victories in military battles. Octavian hasn't yet done so, but he would do so in the following year. But what he's trying to do in this coin, it's 43 BC, Caesar's died in 44, 43 BC, Octavian's minting this coin to say that really he's the other side of the coin. If Julius Caesar is going to be a great military man, Octavian's the next up-and-comer, and in fact the year afterwards, 42 BC, he was to destroy Brutus and Cassius at the Battle of Philippi. So moving on, this is all you need to know about that coin really. The background is that Octavian's been adopted by Julius Caesar as his son. He takes the name Caesar in 44 BC, that is Caesar's will. That gave him some prestige, popularity with people and the army. Politicians were skeptical and thought that Octavian was too young to be a threat. By gaining the name Caesar Octavian, he gained a family, some allies who'd worked with his father, and some enemies who mistrusted Caesar as well. Most thought Octavian was too young in 43 BC to be a threat to anybody. Cicero famously said that he's a boy to be praised, to be decorated, and to be got rid of. So on that particular coin, you can see the military officers. You've got Julius Caesar on one side, the laurel wreath on his head, being portrayed as a great general. You've got Octavian on the reverse of the coin. He hasn't had much military experience at that point, and he wants to be associated with great military exploits of Julius Caesar. Caesar is popular with the army and the people. The religious offices, you've got Julius Caesar with one inscription on coin as Pontifex Maximus, high priest, the office held for life, and Octavian is the augur, the priest. He refused to take the title of Pontifex Maximus because Lepidus held the title and was still alive. It made it seem as though Octavian loved peace and was prepared to work with other politicians. Politically then, on one side you've got Julius Caesar as Dict Perp, dictator for life. The Roman office of dictator was only supposed to be for 6 months and in times of crisis. And the Senate had voted Julius dictator for life, but some politicians thought that was way too much. Julius Caesar was then assassinated. And on the other side, you've got Octavian as consul, which is a legally held office that is for 1 year only, and people voted for it. Octavian was trying to avoid being seen as too power-hungry like Julius, which might upset some politicians. The audience of this coin is probably limited. It's the gold aureus. It's usually rich people or senators that use these, but the important thing, of course, is that Octavian needs to convince those senators that he is not another Julius Caesar, so he puts the title consul on the coin, doesn't he? It's propaganda aimed at senators who have been upset by Julius Caesar and who had first put his head on coins, and then Octavian copies it. So Octavian, the new Julius Caesar, hopefully, but a great military man, not going to upset the Senate, but going to avoid some of Caesar's big mistakes, is what that coin is actually trying to tell us.